success. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next candidate is Heather Brady.
Good evening. My name is Heather Champion Brady, and I have been a resident of Bernards Township for almost 5 years now. I have 2 children at Mount Prospect Elementary School, one in the 3rd grade and one in the 5th grade, and I have been actively involved in their education since they joined Mount Prospect, serving as a homeroom parent volunteer as well as co-chairing several PTO committees. I will bring to the board an informed perspective with over 14 years of professional experience. I received my undergraduate degree in biotechnology and a minor in business administration prior to attending law school at the University of Pittsburgh. After law school, I worked as outside counsel with an international intellectual property boutique law firm in New York City, as well as a general practice law firm in Atlanta, Georgia. I currently serve as in-house patent counsel with Johnson & Johnson. During my time as an attorney, I have counseled business partners in diverse industries on litigation and intellectual property matters, as well as providing pro bono services to those in need, including domestic violence victims. I currently sit on the board of my HOA, and I've served on an advisory board for a national court reporting company. While I do work full-time, my days are flexible with advance notice. I can be available, and I'm available in the evenings and can even be available later if necessary. I was born and raised in a small coal mining town in western Pennsylvania. And when I left in 2003, I never imagined that I would find a town that embodies the qualities of my hometown. But that changed when I came here to Basking Ridge. Bernards Township is a diverse community that accepts and supports cultural and social differences and cultivates a sense of belonging that we all long for, and indeed many of us need. And they do this while maintaining the small town qualities. I own a home in Basking Ridge. I work at J&J in New Brunswick. My children and I love it here and everything that it has to offer. And it would be an honor to serve with the team of people that endeavors to promote our community and our schools. So in short, I am committed to Bernards Township, and that would allow for many years of service on the board if I have that opportunity. And having attended public schools myself for grades K through 12, as well as one of 14 schools of the Pennsylvania state system of higher education, I'm a champion of public schools and public education. I know firsthand how it's crucial to many. Public schools foster a sense of community, they impact property values, and they cultivate civic pride among the most diverse array of citizens. I understand how the board is crucial to helping to balance these interests. The vision of the New Jersey State Board of Education is that New Jersey students will be exceptionally prepared for the global economy and socially ready to contribute to national, international, and local communities. The mission of the state's Board of Education is to provide leadership to achieve excellence in New Jersey public education, engage in legislators, school administrators, teachers, students, parents, and other stakeholders in formulating policies that enhance education, empower families, and broaden opportunities for students. I know you agree the board's role is to embody the state's vision and further their mission, and consistency among our schools is key to achieving this. While each of our schools have their individual interests, we are all competing on the same team. The board serves as the greater good and is responsible for, among many other things I know, promoting a rich curriculum and quality teaching, integrating technology to enhance student learning and student assessment, and empower our parents with quality options, that meet the needs of our children throughout all of our schools. We are a district of 4 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. Consistency can be a challenge. As a member of the board, I undertake to help achieve the consistency while respecting and retaining the individuality of our schools. Per the mission of the Board of Education, I will work with you to engage all stakeholders in formulating policies that embrace education, empower our families, and broaden the opportunities for our students. While I'm willing and able to serve in any capacity you may need in terms of committees, I am most interested in serving on the Policy, Advocacy, or Finance Committee. My entire background has prepared me for this position and exemplifies the strengths that I would bring to the board, from my small town roots to my undergraduate days, law school days, various cities in the country, and various jobs, and having children in the midst of it all. In conclusion, civic duty is not only a responsibility or a way of life, it is a way to live life fully. Having lived in other areas of the country, especially Atlanta, Georgia, I appreciate how fortunate and blessed that we are as a community to live in a township that has nationally ranked and recognized schools. I have a desire to serve. I consider it a privilege to be a part of a team of people that furthers the interests of our schools and our communities, and I welcome the opportunity to serve with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Up next is Leonard Caruso.
Good evening. Thank you, Board, for taking the time to hear us all tonight. My name is Leo Caruso. It's Leonardo, but you can all call me Leo. Many of you may remember me. I was actually here at the last session when there was an opening, and I will be here at every session at which there is an opening until you see fit that I would be able to participate with you, and so long as I am able to do so, because I have a great interest in our community, and I have a great interest in ensuring the consistency and the maintenance of the high level of community educational system that we have here. I have been in the township for 4 years. I am contributing to the birth through K ratio in Liberty Corner. My wife and I have 3 children, aged 6, 4, and 2. We've had a wonderful time here. And I think, like all of the applicants that you're going to see tonight, there are common themes, all right? Everyone who is going to speak to you this evening has a love for their children. Everyone who is going to speak to you this evening has a love for the educational system that is going to bear a gigantic proportion of impact on the upbringing of their children. Every person, most likely within the entire township, has an interest in ensuring that they are maintaining the value of the great things that this township has to offer, and those are the assets of its reputation and the assets of the educational system, and not to be clinical about it, but probably the asset that they have as a property value with respect to the purchases that they made and the investments that they've made in choosing to live their life in Bernard. So I will try to keep it short and address your questions, but I would ask that the board look at the distinguishing factors that you see among the parties that come before you today. We all have this great love, and I'm sure that whomever you select for this position tonight is going to be well-suited to serve the township well and to act in the best interests of those loves and in the best interests of their children and in the best interests of our community and our educational system. I think that one of the distinguishing factors that I can bring to the table is a wealth of experience in a broad range of areas. You all have my submission documents. It's really challenging to encapsulate your entire life's work and a 20-year career in many different areas into 7 minutes. I'm not going to try to do that. I will say, for the highlight reel, for those of you who may not remember my materials succinctly, I graduated with a biology undergraduate degree from Rutgers University. I was born in the state of New Jersey in Morris County. Spent most of my life here until I went to law school in New York City. I attended Fordham University Law School, graduated there in '99. I subsequently served as counsel with two of the most distinct law firms in the world. First with Linklaters, which is a top 3 global law firm operating primarily out of the London offices and continental Europe. I was an IPO and equity specialist there and assisted with corporate transactions and cross-border transactions for approximately 8 years. I'm the only guy who moves to continental Europe to marry a girl from North Carolina, and so decided to move back here with her and raise a lovely family, and we're very happy that we've done that. When I came back to the United States, I began working with Sidley Austin. I was there for a tenure of approximately 4 years, serving again as a senior corporate counsel within their structure. I subsequently worked for Barclays Capital for 4.5 years, primarily in a legal and compliance focus covering 1,200 investment bankers with a specialization in compliance and risk management. That is not an easy position. Those are a lot of challenges to corral and problems to solve. And essentially, I've spent the last 20 years of my life helping people solve their problems and come to resolutions and find ways to bridge gaps and avoid problems. I help people see around corners. That's what I do to this day. Subsequent to Barclays, I worked as general counsel, as well as the chief operating officer, as well as the chief compliance officer for a fund that managed approximately $3 billion and was also a broker-dealer. And last year, I took a little bit turn of my own decision to start my own firm so that I would have more time to focus on those things that are really important to me. Those include my family, and those include having a dedication of time and resources to the things that really you find later in life matter a ton, and perhaps more than working 100 hours a week and having an illustrious career in many regards. So that's where I am today. In terms of the qualifications, I think that gives you a good idea of the different qualifications I have. I have a strong, very strong base in the legal, obviously, a very strong foundation in policy management, the way that you look at risk profiles, the way that you address problems, see them before they come, mitigate them and avoid them, even better than mitigation, obviously. We live in a challenging time. We live in a challenging environment where boards, whatever they may be supervising, are scrutinized very, very carefully. Their thoughts and their decision-making process and their ultimate decisions are second-guessed by many people, some of whom are experts, some of whom are not. I would hope that I would be able to give to the board an ability to help analyze and look at, parse apart problems before they become problems. And I think probably in terms of my qualifications, that is the number one aspect I can bring to you. I have a depth of knowledge in finance that is very, very extensive. I have a depth of knowledge in operations that is very extensive. I have managed operations of firms with certainly multi-million-dollar budgets. I have counseled banks as big as Discovery, multinational corporations with locations in 50 or 60 different countries. So I think that looking at the types of challenges that you have in the financial aspect are certainly key decision-making processes. And essentially, at the end of the day, the biggest qualification and the biggest support that I hope to bring to you is to be able to make sure that we defend and progress our educational system as much as possible. With respect to perception of the board is a supervisory body at the end of the day, and its decisions and its work process should be a backstop to the decision-making processes of all of those experts that we have working within the field. I recognize that there is a broad range of expertise at the table today. I hope to be able to contribute in areas where there may be slightly less expertise. I do believe that from an educational perspective, from a curriculum perspective, from the perspective of educators within the community and externally, from the perspective of consultants that you bring, for instance, like the fellow who's here tonight, you have a wealth of resources before you. I hope that I can stand beside you and help you see things that perhaps you're not looking at because I have a slightly different perspective. My day and night availability. You have about 1 minute. Thank you. My day and night availability is as I need it to be. I own my own firm. I run my own clock. And if you need me here, I will be here. My strengths and the strengths that I think I bring to the table and the participation I'd like to focus on, I think that I've made that clear. But clearly, the finance aspect, and to the extent that any of the committee processes can benefit from risk mitigation, I would see myself doing my best work there. Thank you very much for your time, and again, whatever decision you make this evening, I know it will be a good one, and I wish you all great success. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Richa Kihara.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richa Kihara. I was born in Queens, New York, and moved to New Jersey when I was 5 years old. I graduated from John P. Stevens High School in North Edison, New Jersey. I have a bachelor's degree in economics from New York University and a law degree from Rutgers School of Law, where I was the marketing editor of the Rutgers Journal of Law and Public Policy. While in law school, I had the opportunity to work at the Attorney General's office in the Employment Discrimination Department, and also worked at Riker Danzig right here in Morristown. After graduating law school, I did a one-year judicial clerkship with the Honorable Joanne B. Spatola in the Superior Court of New Jersey, Union County. Thereafter, I went into private practice, focusing in the area of family law, and have been practicing for several years. I have several certifications in alternate dispute resolution, including a certification mediating disputes from the Harvard Negotiation Institute. When people hear that I'm a family lawyer, they always ask, why would you voluntarily want to be a divorce lawyer? Well, it's not for everyone, that's for sure. You certainly need a certain temperament. But for me, it was primarily because I wanted to work with people and help them navigate through a difficult time in their life. The area I work in is challenging in many regards, as you are trying to often balance emotions, finances, the law, and what is in the best interest of the children involved. I work with people of various ages, ethnicities, cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, and play a meaningful role in their life at that moment when they need someone to advocate on their behalf the most. It is those same skill sets as a family lawyer that I believe make me a good candidate for the Board of Education. I moved to Basking Ridge, New Jersey over 1.5 years ago with my husband and our 2 children. My daughter is 9 years old and currently attends Mount Prospect Elementary, and my son is 2.5 years of age. Like many, we moved to Basking Ridge solely for one reason, and for one reason alone. That is because the schools in Bernard's Township have a stellar reputation. As such, I personally have a lot vested in our school district thriving, and this is a reason that I stand here before you today. As a mother of 2 and a full-time attorney, my time, just like everyone else in this room, is limited. However, if there's something that I can do to strengthen our community, make our children's experience at school a more positive one, and support our school's leaders, teachers, and students, then I am willing to make the time and commitment to serve. Hopefully, this commitment will be long-term and for many years to come. As I am in private practice, I have the ability to incorporate into my schedule board meetings both day in and in the evening. I have had the ability to listen to the Board of Education meetings online during my commute to work. As such, I have a broad sense of the complex and important issues facing our district and community today. I am trying to constantly educate myself about these issues, including listening to other parents and what they have to say. I was a class mother last year, and through this experience, had the opportunity to interact with not only the parents for my daughter's class, but others at my daughter's school. My perception of the role of school board membership is to contribute to decisions that will continue to maintain and expand our excellent schools. As a school board member, my role would be to assist in establishing sound policies, approve budgets, represent and further the district's mission, to communicate effectively, to support the continued recruitment of the finest administration and faculty, to uphold educational goals, and to balance financial constraints. As a school board member, our role directly impacts students and their experience. As a member of the board, I would view myself as the voice of our community, including our students. I would address the biggest challenges facing the Board of Education in the upcoming year, the same way I address the biggest challenges in my day-to-day work as a family law attorney: to listen, process, analyze, and attempt to find a solution while balancing all interests involved. My particular priorities include supporting recent initiatives to promote wellness and balance for our students. The academic stress that our children face is something that needs to be addressed, and I'm committed to assisting and alleviating these issues so that every student can find success. I am patient, I am a critical thinker and analytical. I also believe I am creative and open-minded, while many judges in this state may disagree. I am a good writer and possess the communication skills necessary to succeed in the capacity of a board member. But most of all, I have the ability to listen, to be a team player, and to educate myself where I lack in knowledge. I want to have an influence on the quality of life in our community, the community which my husband, children, and I have decided to create a home and future for us. I want to see not only my children graduate from our public school and excel in higher education and in life, but all of the children in our community, as these are my children's peer and their network in the future. The foundation that our children acquire in school is fundamental, and it would be an honor to serve our community in a way where I play a role in impacting our children's future. It is important that our board have a variety of voices, and mine is one of a parent of 2 young children with a simple goal: to make my children's experience through school and the other children in our community a positive one where they can achieve their full potential. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, we're up to James Nolt.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to address you, and thank you for inviting me. I'm particularly interested in a position on the Board of Education of Bernards Township because I've had 2 wonderful children who have learned so much and experienced so much going through the schools here. My wife and I moved here in 2003 as my son was just turning 5 years old, so he got to start kindergarten at Liberty Corner. And I'm proud to say he's now a sophomore with a nearly full scholarship at Carnegie Mellon University studying finance and computer science, in part because of the excellent education that he got through the school system here. My daughter, who's 5 years younger, was born just around the time we moved here, and she's now a freshman at Ridge High School, a proud member of the forensic team, which is such a pride of this high school, and she's already won trophies and other honors as a member of that team. She's also on the soccer team and looks forward to participating in track as well in the spring. So it's really my honor and pleasure to have chosen Basking Ridge, of course, as many others have said, because of the excellent school system. We knew the reputation, and we made sure to come here to have the chance for our children to partake of this great education here. I myself am an educator. Part of the reason I am qualified to serve on the board is that I've spent my life educating students, and it's the greatest joy of my life, other than raising my children, is educating other students. And I started out at Vanderbilt University as a professor, also taught at Seton Hall, New School University in Manhattan. Then I went to a career change, although my teaching was in the area of political science and international political economy. I decided to go into another area which I loved, which is software engineering. And I worked for 6 years in 2 New Jersey companies as a software engineer after getting a master's degree in that area. So I'm a rare person who has both a social science and also a technical background. I'm comfortable with computers and technology as well as with words and language and logical argument. I also, however, after 6 years working as an engineer and also part-time teaching in New York at the New School, got a hankering to get back into education full-time. It's a little tricky to do because sometimes making 2 career changes so drastic in one lifetime is not easy. So I had to find a clever way to do it, so I created my own college as a way of jumping back into academia. And in fact, I conceived and created a joint venture college in China, in Nanjing, a joint venture between New York Institute of Technology and Nanjing University of Post and Telecommunications. I designed the program from scratch, negotiated, including with the ministers in the Chinese government, with the administration in New York of NYIT, designed the curriculum, set up the procedures, and actually created the college that's been operating to this day, educating several thousand Chinese students with a mostly American curriculum. Many of my students have gone on to great success in careers in going to graduate school and then in careers in the United States and in China. So that was an opportunity to gain a lot of experience in educational administration as founding dean of that college, a job I did for 4 years and then 3 more years teaching there. While my family stayed here, so I actually commuted back and forth to China, probably about the world's longest commute. I spent fall and spring semester in China and then the winter break and summer break here in my home in Basking Ridge. So I have a lot of experience with curriculum development. One of the questions you ask is which committees you'd most like to serve on. I suppose my number one choice would be curriculum committee because I have a lot of passion for what is taught and making sure that it's cutting edge, that it's serving our students well. Of course, the state of New Jersey sets guidelines and minimum requirements for the curriculum, but I think we can and do go much beyond that. I should also mention my daughter is taking advantage of one special opportunity at the high school, which is the new STEAM program. She's one of the students studying in the medical concentration within the STEAM program, and I think that's an excellent program. It's an example of kind of innovative curriculum development that allows our students to get something beyond the minimum and indeed to strive for the excellence that this district has always been known for. So curriculum is one area that I have worked a lot in and I have a passion for. I'm also very interested in the work of the Personnel Committee because I have done a lot of hiring myself, including hiring most of the faculty, both Chinese and American and other foreigners, for the college that I ran in China. And also I've been on, in various faculty positions that I've been on in American universities. I've also been on hiring committees, and so have a lot of experience interviewing and looking for the qualities, not just the paper resume, but what makes a really great teacher that inspires others. And so when we're considering personnel actions, when we're considering policies related to personnel on the board, I would be one of the most experienced in having myself reviewed and judged scores of academic candidates for teaching positions and for administrative positions in higher education.
You have about 1 minute to go.
Thank you. Finally, I think the third committee that I'm particularly interested in, although I would serve on any of them, is the Finance Committee, because I know that finance is the place where priorities are set, where goals are made. I want to make sure that we get the maximum return for our investment, and of course, taxpayers in this community pay a lot of money for their schools, and they get a lot of value for that money. But I want to make sure that the money is efficiently spent, that we negotiate well and contracts with suppliers, and that we get the best products that we can, particularly things like software and technical equipment. Because I have a lot of experience in that area, I think I could be a good judge and reviewer of contracts related to technical spending, software spending, and so forth. So it would be my pleasure to serve on this board. I have considerable availability because I'm semi-retired. I still teach at New York University, but one course a week, and I can, right now I teach on Thursday early afternoons, so the rest of the week I'm writing books and writing a weekly blog and on television quite often, so I'm flexible as to my time. Although I do a lot, I set my own schedule for the most part, so I would have plenty of availability to serve on the board. I look forward to your decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we have Ala Sadavaziri.
Good evening. I am Ala Sadaq Waziri. I was born in Iran. I immigrated exactly this year is 40 years ago. Many of you are too young to remember there was a revolution in Iran, and I moved about several months before that revolution. I picked Basking Ridge after graduating from school. I went to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I received my BS degree, MS degree, and PhD degree, all from civil engineering in University of Illinois. I almost became mayor of Urbana-Champaign, but then they said no. Moved to New Jersey. I came to New Jersey as a professor at New Jersey Institute of Technology. I started as an assistant professor, and now I am a full professor at New Jersey Institute of Technology. I have been living in Basking Ridge since 1992, when my first son was born. I deposited the first mortgage as I was coming out of the Morristown Hospital, right in front of the P.O. box there. There is a box right there as you walk out. I have two other children, Hannah, and I'm delighted that Azad is here. My Azad is now a senior. So far, he has a couple good admissions. This is a great school system, and I committed myself with my wife. We said that being a first-generation immigrant, I would like to stay in one place. Despite the opportunities that I had to move, I didn't. I wanted all of them. They were all born in Morristown Hospital, and I were all graduated from here. I remember going to Mount Prospect meetings, even before Mount Prospect was built. My oldest son started from Liberty Corner, and we moved to Mount Prospect, then back now to actually Liberty Corner District and Queen Anne Drive. So the reason that you may wonder that ironic that now that your children have graduated, how come now to get involved? The reason are several. As I said, one is I am really committed to Basking Ridge. We would like to stay here for generations to come. It is important as a first-generation immigrant to develop a root at one place. Also professionally, now I have more time. When my kids were younger, if I had time, I was coaching soccer. And now I'm done with coaching soccer, so I have more time to spend on other community work. And also as a full professor, I will come back to this. There is a flaw in higher education. It's not a flaw really, I don't like to characterize it, but the way it is structured when you are younger, when you are your junior, is called publish or perish. I have published, as a matter of information about my background, 150 journal and conference papers. I am a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I am a fellow of American Society of Civil Engineers. I am also an ABET program evaluator. Some of these things are not bragging. It is actually fast-forwarding our information about the strength that I bring to the board. As a program evaluator for ABET, we go to other universities and we evaluate their program. For me, it will be the program in civil engineering. It deals with your curriculum offering. It deals with how you do assessment. Assessment is very critical in this. I am a faculty senator at NJIT. I used to be a president of the faculty senate. It is just for 1 year, although it is elected, but it is only 1 year. It is limited to 1 year. I was also university senator. I chose not to continue there. And then I used to be an associate dean for several years. I have gone to community colleges. I have reached out even to high schools. I have given talk at high schools as well. Lastly, the reason I want to be a member of the board is I would like the great teachers and community of educators to continue pronouncing my last name. But the board members, you can call me Ala or even Al, okay? You don't need to worry about it. But so this way, the great teachers, which they pronounce actually my kid's last name very well. So those are, important, the reasons why I would like to do this. Now, as a professor, I also supervise PhD students. I have been in supervising capacity. I have graduated 10 PhD students. So it would be natural for me to be a member of the board and act in that capacity. As far as availability goes, schedule of a university professor is quite flexible. As a matter of fact, that's what I tell you. One reason is we are not, and when we go to what of the strengths or what of the programs I will be helping the board to initiate, one deals with that transition to college. I generally teach during 2 days, and I can easily schedule that to be any 2 days. So I can not only come to this meeting very easily, I can be at any day meeting, because majority of our job is research. I either publish paper or I read paper, which it could be in front of my own computer. So I I am very flexible in that. And now going to how would I help the Board of Education? When you do a search on challenges facing Board of Education, for some districts it could be issues like finance and family issues, although we might have some of the issues that are in other districts. I don't know yet, but these are some. Technology, the multitasking of the student. This is a challenge today for young generation. So we as educators, we have to deal with this. And being on a board, I will be at the good position to be under supervising and guidance to the administrator and the grade teacher. Drugs, budget issue, I am very concerned about that. I would like to get involved with that. But more, then there is bullying, bullying that is very important. Attitude of student, this is one complaint of teachers about apathy, tardiness, disrespectness, attendance. We may have not as much such a problem in this district. I have to find out, but this is what nationally is reporting. And by the way,
You have about 1 minute to go.
Oh, 1 minute, oh, come on. To a university professor, you have to give this. So anyway, 2 items that I feel very strongly about it. One is I would like to introduce more engineering courses in the curriculum. The country needs 1 million more engineers in the next 10 years. And our kids are not coming to engineering school, especially female students. That's one area. Or computer science. We do have one course, and actually every time I run into supervisor curriculum or administrator, I encourage them to have one. And ultimately, we did have one, and it is great, but we don't have any more. I wanted ASA to take, say, app development. We don't have that. The most important one then is a course on transition. It would be talk or discussion. Regardless of the outcome of tonight, I will reach out to counseling department. I would like to offer a workshop or a talk on transition to college. This is very important. We do a lot of work until they come to college, but then do they graduate? If they graduate, do they get good jobs? Do they get, doesn't have necessarily in that discipline, but do they get jobs? So it's important that we do those transitions because I'm glad to see that we have a talk about transition from William Annan to Ridge. Imagine how much more involved it is going from high school to college. So I would like to initiate it. I would like our district to be the leader in establishing a course on this so that when they say, look to your right, look to your left, one of them will not be here next year in engineering, in STEM field, look to your right, look to your left. One of the 2 of you, 3 of you will not be here next. 40% only graduate. Okay, so those are issues that I feel very passionate about it, and I would be more than glad to serve with you and work in a guidance role with the administrator and a great faculty we have to offer courses. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Timothy Salmon.
Good evening, board members and administrators. Last May, when the board announced a vacant seat, I decided to apply. I had never been to a board meeting before. I had no idea which issues were being discussed or which initiatives were being undertaken. So I think it was probably an understatement to say that my ambition got the best of me. But looking back, I'm very happy that I tried because it forced me to attend my first board meeting. I got to hear from the other candidates who had extremely impressive qualifications and gave impassioned speeches. When I was growing up, my father was a member of the Board of Education in our town, and I remember him saying that every year he had to go around begging my friends' parents to apply for a position on our board. But here it was really heartening to know that there were many parents who actually sought out the chance to work for all the kids in our schools. So while I was disappointed I wasn't selected, just attending the meeting was worth the experience because it kept me coming back. So since last May, I've attended several more meetings and listened to audio recordings of them. And now my hat, from a more humbled and more informed head, is back in the ring. By way of background, I live in town with my wife, twin 8-year-olds that go to Oak Street, and my 4-year-old daughter, who's in Gentle Shepherd Preschool, but nevertheless tries desperately every day at drop-off to get me let her go to school with her older siblings. I actually told her that I asked at the last boarding meeting if she could go, and you all said no. So it would be great if that could be entered in the record somewhere, just in case she ever tries to call my bluff. In town, I've coached baseball, basketball, and lacrosse, taught Sunday school at St. Mark's, and I'm the treasurer of my neighborhood association. Professionally, I'm a patent attorney, and now I run my own consulting firm. I have a BS in biomedical engineering from the University of Rochester and a JD from St. John's University School of Law. Since I have my own company, my schedule is flexible to accommodate board and committee meetings and other school events. I believe the school board should be transparent in decision-making and visible to the community. Every parent's most valuable possession is their kids, and transparency and visibility lets parents know that the infrastructure built and overseen by the board is providing the support, safety, and encouragement for the success of our kids. And I think that's what every kid is looking for. I know I was when I was in school. A school system that provides support, safety, and encouragement inspires confidence and success. I want to be part of fostering that type of environment for all of the kids in our schools. The 3 main areas of interest I have for a role on the board are encouraging STEM education at early levels to demonstrate that these topics are accessible by everyone. I want to encourage involvement in any extracurricular activities so we can create well-rounded educations for our kids. And very importantly, I think all of our kids should have an opportunity to do public speaking at a very early age. I was driving my kids to school in October, and my 2nd grade daughter mentioned that she had signed up to give a speech to all of her classmates at Oak Street, or the whole Oak Street school, about which one of her favorite habit out of the 7 habits was her favorite one. I thought it was a great idea that the school was doing this, and my son, her twin brother, was sitting in the car, and I asked him if he signed up. He's the socially reluctant one, so she's going to have to drag him through life, I think. But told him to sign up as well. So we worked on the speeches, we did outlines, we prepared first drafts, we practiced in front of audiences of stuffed animals and Star Wars figures. And while they looked a little nervous up there in front of the whole school, after they were done, they were smiling ear to ear and beaming with confidence. And I think those are the types of events that make a real difference for kids. In view of my areas of interest, I would be particularly interested in serving on the Policy, Curriculum, and Community Relations Committee, and I would certainly want to continue service on the board past this term. Thank you.
Thank you. We're up to Suzanne Schaffer.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Schaffer, and I want to thank you for your time tonight. I'm among a very accomplished group of people, and I'm honored to be here. The very first time, I'm shorter than he is. The very first time I appeared before a Board of Education was when my daughter was in 1st grade in a different district. She's now in 9th grade, so that was a while ago. I was upset about a decision to cut the fine arts faculty in half as part of a budget proposal. The art teachers were already operating under crazy conditions. We called it art on a cart at the elementary school because there was no art room. I could not believe that such a decision could have been considered, so I went to the board meeting, presented my concerns, and started to listen. As I sat through that board meeting and many subsequent board meetings, I became much more aware of the challenges of school funding, the lack of support from the state, and yet the mandates that came from them, and the overall struggle with alternative revenue. I had realized that the art issue was not just the place that I had noticed the struggle, and I wondered where else had been affected and what could be done to help bring in additional resources to the school so educationally important areas like arts and others could continue. A board member who was retiring off the board suggested I work with her to investigate the idea of forming an education foundation. We worked for about 6 years to get the Education Foundation of Morris Plains off the ground, and I'm proud to say it's a vital and active group in the community at this point. But getting it going, like any nonprofit organization, was a challenge, and we worked very closely with the Board of Education, the district superintendent, and the principals to determine the best path to help the district with additional funding. I will say the district has added back another art teacher, and the EFMP has established technology and mini-grant initiatives with the district, along with forging relationships with foundations and corporations to provide revenue for those projects. So my experience and understanding of boards of education began long before we moved to this district. As hard as I was working with the EFMP And as much as the schools were inching toward change, I felt my own children needed a bigger district with different opportunities. We decided, like many other families, to move to Basking Ridge in 2014 for the quality of the schools. My children started in 4th grade at Oak Street and 6th grade at Wams, and they're now at Wams and Ridge. We have been amazed at the quality of their education, the opportunities available, and the district has met every expectation we've had. However, the one area I've become concerned about is that of student stress. This is an issue that touches so many areas of the district, and how we address it is going to be critical in the coming years. My area of concern in this broad subject is the constant focus on preparing for the next level. 4th and 5th grades spend preparing children for the rigors of middle school. Middle school focused on getting ready for high school, and of course high school focused on prepping for college. In high school, there's even a sense of urgency about preparing for the next level of course. Teachers are unable to allow organic learning, but have to move forward to complete material. This causes stress for both students as well as the teachers. At the high school level, so much discussion and effort is focused on what colleges want in students, and I'm dismayed by what I hear from my freshmen about how her friends are stressed about preparing and taking college entrance exams, even as 9th graders. I believe this culture of preparation and testing is causing stress for students, for teachers, and for parents, and is only making money for the test prep companies. I believe that we as a district need to support students, teachers, and the administration to strike a balance with the desire to cater to goals set by outside groups and make decisions that are best for our students despite these pressures. I am in somewhat of a unique position to contribute and add much to this discussion on the board. I do actually understand what colleges are looking for in the students because I have spent my career focusing on just this. I have been in admissions at Carnegie Mellon University, Lehigh University, and recently Drew, and spent an additional 14 years as a college counselor, advising high school students about the college admissions process at 2 New Jersey independent schools. I continue to do independent college counseling currently, and I am knowledgeable about current trends in college admissions. I also happen to have a degree in human development and family studies with a concentration in early childhood from Cornell, as well as a master's in higher education administration from the University of Rochester, which gives me an understanding of both the needs of students as well as the institutions. I believe very strongly that we should be encouraging students to become the people that they are going to become. Students should use the years in school to explore options, experiment with activities, stretch themselves academically, and find their interests and passions. We should not be trying to create or force our students to become cookie-cutter applicants for specific colleges. We should not be focusing on preparing for some test at whatever level the students are at. We need to reduce the stress of the teachers, eliminating the curse of coverage, and exchange it for an emphasis on joy in learning and teaching. We should, as a district, be most focused on what are the best educational decisions for our students. This is what I would stand for as a member of the Board of Education. Decisions that are supportive of our students, their education, and their positive experience while they are members of our district, and a focus on creating a love of learning, not a dread of failure due to externally set ideals. I understand the challenges still exist. The funding challenges that I learned about almost 10 years ago still exist. Mandated programs, lack of funding from the state, caps on budgets, conflicting messages that come from the state and national level education departments, and certainly technology is only going to be a bigger issue. The challenges of the Board of Education is to balance the needs of our students, with the constraints of budget, resources, and community expectations. I don't know that I have a solution for any of those. They haven't been solved in 10 years, and I don't expect them to be solved in my time. But I do think I can thoughtfully and carefully consider all of the information and help the board make wise decisions for our current students as well as our future ones. I had a guidance colleague who used this as his signature on emails, used the following phrase: if it is educationally sound, it should be administratively feasible. Those words I've thought of often. The Board of Education supports the administration in its goals to make our schools the best educational experience for students and teachers, and I would like to be a part of that important job, to make what are educationally sound decisions administratively feasible. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have David Shaw.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. When I first thought I was going to apply for this position, I talked to a friend of mine on the Chester board. He's the vice president of the Chester board, and he said, oh, there'll probably be maybe 1 or 2 people who apply for this. I can't believe how many, so thank you for spending the time listening to all of us. I moved here 3 years ago with my wife when she was pregnant. We both lived in New Jersey our whole life. And we moved here just like many other people because of the school system here. My wife is now pregnant again with our second on the way. And my daughter, who's now 3 years old, when she was 6 months old, she had seizures. And it was a rare form of seizure. She's doing great now, just so you all know. But she went into the state program for early childhood intervention. And that ends at 3 years old. Well, in this town, you have an integrated preschool system, so there was no gap between when she turned 3 and when she goes into school. So she started in January in the integrated preschool system. So just thank you for what you do for the kids in this school, in this town. So my number one goal, just like the board's number one goal, is to help the students and to create great students and great people in the world. So I think the main goal is, well, you have to deal with all the regulations and the curriculum and everything like that. It's really giving the school and the teachers the resources they need and making sure they can do what they have to do for the students. And I just wanted to tell a quick story. My favorite teacher of all time was my calculus teacher in high school. It was my senior year, and she was by far the hardest teacher I ever had. She gave out 1 A and 1 B every single marking period. That was it. But every single student in that class got a 4 or 5 on the AP calculus test. And when I went into college, we would have classes that would have some calculus in it, and I knew it like the back of my hand. So just wanted to tell you about that. And then I also was very involved in extracurricular activities. I played soccer my whole life, and I fully believe that that is one of the greatest things that you can have for your kids. It teaches them everything from time management to how to win, how to lose, how to make sacrifices, set and achieve goals, and really teamwork. And then my wife is a teacher as well. She has taught anywhere from kindergarten to 8th grade. She also teaches special ed. She taught in this town on a leave replacement a couple years ago, so we're very aware of this town as well. As well as my mother, mother-in-law, and sisters are all teachers, so I hear every day about the plights of teachers and what is going on, whether it's a change in grading system or a new test, or it's every day something new that the teachers are dealing with, so I fully understand what the teachers are going through. So my background, I went to Rutgers University. I got my accounting degree. I'm a CPA. And then I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers. I worked at one of the big accounting firms. I worked there for several years. And then after there, I went to Lincoln Educational Services. What that is for anyone who doesn't know, it's Lincoln Tech. So if we have schools all over the country, so it's similar to what you guys do here. I deal with schools every single day of my life. We have 6 schools in New Jersey. It's for-profit post-secondary education. It's vocational schools like auto schools and nursing schools. So every day I deal with school issues. So I'm in meetings all the time about security and bullying and curriculum every single day. So I deal with that all the time. I'm in charge of financial reviews, budgets. The business office for all of our different schools report up to me. I've also been involved in union negotiations. 6 of our schools have unions, so I've been in those meetings, been part of those negotiations. I also deal with insurance, whether it's property, auto, health, all different insurance, so I can help make the best decisions on insurance. As well as I approve contracts, capital projects. I'm also a member of our audit committee and in our board meetings, so I'm well aware of what decisions have to be made in committees. I deal with the DOE and accreditors all the time. We make phone calls to them often. Also, one of my not responsibilities, one of the things we do as a company is we try to go to as many graduations as we can. We have graduations all over, and we go and we also sit in on classes to make sure we're aware of every day why we're doing this, to make sure we know that we're not just doing it, we're doing it for the student. My availability, my schedule is very flexible. I am full-time, but I'm very flexible. I can work from home whenever I need to, so I'm available for any meetings. The committees of interest, I'm open to any. Obviously, finance would be the number one that I would qualify for, but I deal with personnel and policies and all different issues at my job now. As an example, one policy I just saw came out that Christie signed on his last day was about chewing tobacco, that you're no longer allowed to have chewing tobacco in public schools in New Jersey. And now school boards have to make sure that signs go up in the school for this. So if you didn't know about that now, I guess you do. And that was one of the last things he did. So some of the biggest challenges I think the school board's going to be facing is where I really think I can help. One is with the new tax laws. So for anyone who doesn't know what's going on with that, you can no longer deduct all of your real estate taxes, so there's going to be a lot of pressure on boards to keep control of your costs. And a lot of residents are going to come to these meetings saying, get your costs in line. And the way we did that in my company, which I think we can replicate here, and I've seen it a little bit here too, when I was reviewing some of your presentations, but it's really with technology. So you don't hurt the students, and you can control costs without really impacting the students. And some of the technologies that we've dealt with is not just computers and things like that. It's actually with capital improvements. So putting in new HVAC systems that are energy efficient so your costs come down from energy, or putting in new lighting systems so your lighting costs come down.
You have about 1 minute to go.
Yep, just about done. So it's also negotiating with utility companies is one of the big things that we've done. And then the last thing is that I know the new governor, Murphy, has been talking about park and adjusting park and changing park. And we deal with testing at my company all the time, and rules change, and DOE changes rules all the time on us, and how quickly you have to adjust to new rules, like if they change park. So thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, we are up to our last person, Santosh Subramanian.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Vice President, Mr. Superintendent, members of the Burnett Township Board of Education, and fellow residents, for giving me the opportunity to present my candidacy for a position on the Burnett's BOE. A quick introduction of myself. I moved into Burnett Township in July of 2014, along with my wife and son, who is a sophomore at Ridge High. I have a master's in mathematics and computer science. I've worked in the technology industry for the last 27 years. And I've worked in multiple countries, Singapore, United Kingdom, Australia, India, and for the last 23 years here in the US. As a technology advisor and an executive, I have learned that technology is a driver of today's economy and will shape the world of the future. Now, I want to share with you 3 stories that have had a fundamental impact in my life growing up. Back in India, after 10th grade, we had applied to new schools for admission to the 11th and the 12th grade. Admissions were not just given on the percentage that you earned in your last final grade exam of the 10th grade, but also on a first-come, first-served basis. So when grades were out and I had to get admissions, I set out at 4 a.m. to stand in line at the school nearest my house. I was about 300th in the line. At about 5 a.m., these guys from my neighborhood had come over to the school looking for me. They had found out from my parents where I had gone and had come searching for me. This surprised me. You would ask me why. Because growing up, I was a very belligerent kid, and I had fought with every kid in the neighborhood. So in 10th grade, I had no friends. I was all alone. So it was kind of surprising to see these kids come over in search of me. Now, I had not talked to these kids for a year, but that did not stop them. They found me, and they somehow had gotten a blank application form for a different school that was about few further away. They had me fill out that form. They ran back and forth to get photocopies of my grade sheet. And then they hurried back to this new school and stood in line instead of me for about 4 hours until I could get there. Had they let our quarrels come in the way and stood and not come over looking for me, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you. Because I did not get admission into the school that I stood in line for. I'm here today because of these guys who helped me graduate from high school. They taught me what community meant. People in a community look out for each other. You serve others in a community not when they ask for it, but when you think you can help. The next story is of a schoolmate from 8th grade, Alex Rodriguez. He was the most disruptive kid in the class. He had already fallen back 2 grades. While in most of the classes he would get yelled at, our math teacher, Mrs. Esta Coutinho, would kind of tell him in a calm and steady voice to stay quiet, and that will normally work. Now, it was our annual track competition. It was the last lap of a 1,200-meter race, and Alex was about 150 meters from the leader, behind the leader. I still remember that shrill voice of Mrs. Coutinho running along the sidelines, crying out, "Alex, run, you can do it." I remember Alex giving a side glance, something of a side glance to her, and they connected. Because what happened after that was a blur. Alex ran, and he kind of caught up to the leader with about 20 paces to go. He pushed harder, and he won the race. Alex changed that day. He went on to he did well in school after that, but he went on to play soccer for the state university, and he is a very successful businessman today. That incident made me realize the impact a teacher's faith can have in a student's life. My last story is about myself. I grew up in a small apartment that was all of 525 square feet, with 9 members that included my parents, my 2 sisters, my aunt, my 2 cousins, and my grandmother. My father was the only breadwinner in the family, and he was earning a very average factory wage. In 10th grade, we could not afford to buy the study guides that were essential for the exams. My father was a shift worker, so he would come back from a 10 or 12-hour shift, and sometimes that meant coming home at about 11:30 at night. He would hunker down on the floor of the kitchen, and he hand-wrote those borrowed study guides to a notebook with all the diagrams and figures, sometimes until 2 or 3 a.m. He did this every day nonstop for about 3 to 4 months. And by the time he was done, he must have handwritten about 3,000 pages. His commitment to do everything that he could for my sisters and I to be successful is etched in my psyche. What my parents and family gave up for me to have a good education is something I can never possibly emulate. So why these 3 stories? These experiences have taught me that education of our kids is not the responsibility of just the teachers, just the community, or just the parents. If anything, these stories are an example of why all 3 have an equal responsibility to ensure that the kids of Basking Ridge get a great education and become successful. It is why members of the Board of Ed have to work along with teachers, parents, and community at large as equal partners to make our education system one of the best in the state and in the nation. When I initially set out to put in my application for this position, it was because I wanted to improve the STEAM program and put in programs to get middle school kids ready for high school. But with some research, I realized that the responsibility of the board is much broader than that. Of course, I still do plan to bring about changes to the issues that I deeply care about. But being an efficient board member is to put the entire township school system into perspective. That includes the students, the teachers, the special needs students, the office staff, the infrastructure, the janitorial staff, and the buses that ferry our kids from home to school and back, but also to the games across state.
Excuse me, sir, you have about 1 minute to go.
Sure. I understand that along with the PTO and the teachers, Burnett's BOE, through its committees, make our system function efficiently and, more importantly, stay well-funded. With that, my commitment to the board, if I'm appointed, is to be available for committee meetings and board meetings. I commit to come prepared for these meetings. I also understand, if appointed, when I speak to a community member, I represent the Board of Ed and the Bernards Township. I will therefore commit to be prudent in issuing opinions and making statements. I do not come here knowing everything that is to know about being a board member of Bernards BOE, but instead to be part of a team where every member has one purpose in mind: to do their best to serve the kids and teachers of Bernards Township. I commit to that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, the board is going to go into an executive session to discuss all of the amazing candidates that just came out tonight. This is going to be difficult, so I cannot promise you exactly how long this is going to take. We have to make a motion to go into that executive session. Mrs. Swerner and Mrs. Gray. We will try to, is everyone in favor of going to executive session? Yes. Okay. We approximate that we might be back around 10 o'clock. We will do our best, okay?
Thank you all. What job.
Okay, we're going to resume our regular session again. Thank you for being patient with us. We tried to be as quick as we could, but it was a lot to talk about. We were so impressed with all the candidates who came out. A couple candidates mentioned being humbled. We're always humbled when we see people who are so passionate about education and care so much about the students in our district coming out, and that, you know, people who recognize what the teachers in this district do and the staff. So that it was actually really wonderful to sit and listen to all of you talk. It was enjoyable, as opposed to some of the things at our meetings, which are sometimes tedious. It was a really difficult decision. We had a lot of impressive candidates. We encourage all of you to keep coming to board meetings and to keep being involved, and even to email us with your questions or concerns. We're always available. You're always welcome to talk to us at any time. So at this point, I'm going to call for a motion for someone to nominate a candidate. Would anyone like to do that? Mrs. Swerner.
I move to nominate Tim Salmon.
Okay. Would anyone like to second that motion? Mrs. Waldridge? Okay, so we would just take a vote on this motion? Okay. Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Byrne,
Yes.
Mrs. Swerner,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond,
Yes.
Mrs. Mrs. Korn,
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune,
Yes,
Madam President.
thank you. So, congratulations. Okay, now we'd like to invite you to come up to the stage. We are now moving on to the next agenda item, which is the appointment of the new board member. Welcome. So it's always a little bit unusual to just jump into the middle of a meeting like this. Just for your reference, if we're voting on anything that you haven't been brought up to speed, you can just abstain on any votes that, yeah, okay. Okay. So we're up to superintendent's report at this point. And our superintendent is out with what we hope is not the flu, so he's not here tonight. So Mr. Syed, our assistant superintendent, is filling in at our meeting tonight, so he will be doing the superintendent's report.
Right, so for tonight, we'll call it the assistant superintendent's report. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So just 4 items tonight. First item on the superintendent's report is the committee assignments, and so obviously Mr. Salmon would be joining where it says appointee under advocacy and policy committee. And the second item are approvals. Second item is approval for the Washington, D.C. trip, which is standard approval. And the third item is also a standard approval, which is the Ridge High School forensic team trips. And those are pretty standard as well. And then the last item is an authorization for a resolution agreement for the Office of Civil Rights to ensure that our website is ADA compliant. And so we have to undergo a process to ensure that it is compliant for folks with disabilities. And so we'll be undergoing that. It is a 1-year process to ensure our website is compliant for ADA. Oh, and of course, number 5 is the how could I forget, as the anti-bullying coordinator, is the receipt of the HIB report dated January 22nd, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Syed. Does anyone have any questions about these items? Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne,
Yes.
Mrs. Werner,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond,
Yes.
Mrs. Korn,
Yes.
Mr. Salmon,
Abstain.
Mrs. Wooldridge,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune,
Yes.
Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're up to public comment on agenda items. If you have any comments on any of the items that were on the agenda up until this point, this is the time. If you do come up, sign the clipboard with your name and address, please.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mr. Salmon, on your appointment to the board. Welcome. You'll get to hear me speak a lot in the next few months. With respect to Dr. Grip's report on the demographics of the district, I was very impressed by the numbers that he gave and the fact that our negative K replacement is not going to be as what we anticipate, and that the numbers of students will be decreasing, relatively speaking, over the next 5 years. There's one thing, however, that I hope that you would be able to discuss with him at some point, and that would be about talking about extended families and how that's going to affect living environments and space within a single-family home. I know in my district, we have a number of families who are joined together, whereas two brothers would be living together with their wives and families in a single house, sharing bedrooms. So you have two families living in one dwelling, and so all of those kids are, in essence, going to the school. So I wonder if that could be broken out, or if that is something that happens here in Bernards Township. Also, since the enrollment is projected to decline within the next 5 years, I hope that the board seriously considers replacing programs in the district that were removed back in 2011. I think it's important that you take a look at what was cut at that time and see if there's a way to re-implement them back into the district. I know that some things were of value to the students here, and it's my hope that you would be able to bring some of those programs back. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment on agenda items? No? Okay, then I will close that public comment. We're up to approval of minutes. Would someone like to make a motion? Mrs. Wooldridge? Mrs. Korn, second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne?
Abstain?
Mrs. Werner?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Abstain.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Madam President?
Thank you. We are up to committee reports, and what we decided tonight is that because of the late hour, we are going to only discuss things that we are voting on tonight or that need to be said at this given moment, and most of the committee reports will happen next time. So the first is we have Finance Committee report. I'm just going to talk about the items that are on the agenda to be voted on, and then we'll vote on them. Items 1 to 3 are standing items. Item 4 is professional development for a number of different staff members. Item 5 is a field trip for the Winter Color Guard. Item 6 is the sale of old computers. Items 7 to 9 are online courses for home instruction for several cases where we don't have staff members available. Items 11 and 12 are revisions to services for students, and the next bunch of items are services for students. And then item 18 is a settlement for a student in an out-of-district placement. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the items before we vote? We need a motion, I guess. Okay, Karen, Mrs. Gray, and Mrs. Wooldridge. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Mrs. Werner?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Abstain.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes,
Madam President?
thank you. Trying to see how many items there are. 21 items under personnel. Would someone like to make a motion? Mrs. Swarner and Mrs. Gray? You want to just mention that we met and we're not doing the committee report? Or?
Yeah, personnel met last Friday and will report out next week. These are all fairly standard personnel items. Let me draw to your attention item number 21, which is the approval of Mr. McLaughlin's miracles, which he has successfully accomplished. Any questions?
Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne,
Yes.
Mrs. Swarner,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Salmon,
Abstain.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond,
I know. Yes.
Mrs. Corn,
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune,
Yes. Sorry,
Madam
losing my
President.
voice. Thank you. We're up to the policy committee. There's one item. Would someone like to make a motion for that item? Mrs. Wooldridge and Mrs. Swarner. This is a second reading of a policy. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it.
When was it read the first time, the last meeting?
Last meeting.
Okay, no other questions about it? Okay, so let's do a roll call on that item.
Mr. Byrne,
Abstain?
Mrs. Swarner,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Salmon,
Abstain.
Mrs. White,
Abstain.
Mrs. Richmond,
Yes.
Mrs. Corn,
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune,
Yes,
Madam President.
thank you. And I think the policy committee met this morning, so we'll be reporting out at a later date. Okay, so I know Mrs. Wooldridge had one quick note. She's not going to do the committee report
Yeah,
for
I'm
curriculum.
not, yeah, the curriculum committee met, and I got the minutes out last week, but I'm going to do the report next time. I just wanted to remind everyone that in the last curriculum committee, we went over 2 program evaluations, one for the language arts for K through 2, and another one for the math K through 5. And so there's a summary of both program evaluations in the minutes, and there's links to the full reports and the executive summaries from the minutes. So what I would like people to do is, once everyone's had a chance to review the program evaluation reports, if you could email any questions that you have to me, and at our next committee meeting, we'll be getting answers to the questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone have you have an announcement for advocacy, or just wait till next time? Go ahead.
I'm not going to do my minutes, but there are a couple things that I just wanted to point out to the board and to the public. On January 24th, there is a From WAMS to Ridge Transition presentation at the WAMS PTO meeting on Wednesday at 9:15. On January 30th, there is a parent presentation about cyberbullying and suicide with Mr. Halligan and the WAMS administration at 7 p.m. on January 30th. And that, although I feel like that's not the right time, and that is a follow-up to a presentation that's going to be given to the students at school. On January 31st, there is Dr. Michael Bradley is going to be coming back to our school to talk about crazy stressed students, saving today's overwhelmed teams with love, laughter, and the science of resilience. On January 31st, he'll be at the Ridge PAC at 7 p.m. And on February 1st, he'll be at the Bernardsville High School PAC in Bernardsville. And the Bernardsville one will be focusing on middle school students and parents. And that's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions about any of that? for Mrs. Richmond? No? Okay. Do we have any urgent liaison reports that need to be done this time? No, good. Ad hoc SEL committee?
The committee met this past Friday, and I'll be reporting out at the next meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. We're up to public comment on non-agenda items. If anyone has a public comment, you can come up and sign in, please.
So good evening, congratulations, Mr. Salmon. And my comment is basically about Mount Prospect. I have a third grader there. I have a middle school child at William Annan, but I wanted to say that I'm grateful
I'm sorry, can you tell us your name? I
Sure,
didn't
it's
realize you
Rippy
forgot.
Carta.
Okay.
And so I wanted to say thanks for having the Gifted and Talented program at Mount Prospect. It's fantastic. The person who runs it, Ms. Linstra, is great. We have fantastic teachers. I wanted to ask the board if they would consider expanding it to language arts, reading comprehension, and potentially science somewhere down the line. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jim Vopel, 20 Evergreen Place. There we go. I just want to talk to the board about the 10 half-days that the teachers get for parent-teacher conferences. I realize that your half-day ends at 12:45, which is 15 minutes later than when my half-day ends, which is at 12:30. Being that they are very religious in terms of their time, the 15-minute time slots, which is the same that I use. What they have is they have 9 15-minute time slots for their daytime conferences, 8 15-minute time slots for their nighttime conferences, for a total of 39 slots. The question that I have is, in a self-contained class of between 20 to 22 students, why is it that we need 4 half-days for parent-teacher conferences when I can see almost 90 parents in the span of 2 days and 2 half-days and 1 nighttime conference? I think it's not economically viable to keep doing it that way. I think the teachers, if you take a look at the survey, what they seem to be is under a tremendous amount of pressure to get material in for park, and by losing all of these full days, because now they're having parent-teacher conferences, I think is not using the time wisely. Also the fact that I think you should survey the teachers and say what percentage of your slots were filled. Because as I was walking through the hallways of my daughter's school at Oak Street, I noticed that a lot of the time slots were not filled in. So as a teacher, yes, I would certainly appreciate free time to plan and to grade, but I think that 4 half-days in the fall and 4 half-days in the spring, I think is really too much. I don't think that the parents are really in favor of it, the parents that I've spoken to, especially full-time working parents for having to arrange for childcare for those 8 half-days for conferences. The way that we do it in my district is we tie everything into teachers' convention. We have half-day on Monday, half-day Tuesday, and then we have our nighttime conferences Tuesday night, and then we have Wednesday right before teachers' convention. If you want to tie in your in-service that you did this year, so in essence it was 5 half-days in a row starting, I think it was the previous Thursday if I'm not mistaken. You can do that and have the teacher in-service on that Wednesday before teachers' convention. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and I think that cutting down, I know that you're going to be looking at negotiations with the teachers next year, and I don't know if this is a negotiable item and that it's in their contract. If it's not, I would certainly welcome you to speak with the teachers and get their input on whether they feel that it's valuable, and just see whether or not they filled their time slots. Because if they don't, I'm sure that they would certainly welcome the time back with their kids in order to teach them the material that they're losing during that particular time period. So if you would look at that, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? No? Okay, I'm going to close public comment.
So let's look at the public comment. So we had the comment from the Mount Prospect parent about the G&T program. I'm glad to hear the math program is going well. I know that since the math program is relatively new, there had been discussion about potentially expanding. I know that that's a matter that curriculum has discussed in the past. I know this because initially when we added the math program, I was still director of curriculum, and we had talked about that as a long-term goal. So that's something that I don't want to be premature in discussing, but I know that's something that's a target down the road. As far as the half-day schedule for conferences, this is also something that, being in the district for 13 years, we've tested different models. We've had multiple models of how we've run these conferences, and I know that anecdotally we've gotten feedback, but we haven't actually done a teacher survey. That's a good idea. We have talked to teachers. We've talked to principals. We've had less days, more days. We've had different formats where the Show Me conference where the students are talking, we changed that so that it's actually teacher-led. So we've modified these, and I do know that that's something that the elementary curriculum cabinet is looking at. So I will take that feedback back to the 4 elementary principals and to Dr. Heineman as well.
Thank you, Mr. Syatt. Okay, we are up to board forum. Does anyone have anything for board forum? I would just like to congratulate Mr. Salmon again and welcome you to the board.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you, and we'll be sure to be getting you up to speed quickly for your new job. Anyone else have stuff for board forum?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate a big thank you for the other candidates who have stayed the course here this fine evening. The resumes, the experiences, the credentials of all of you were so impressive, and I think I can speak on behalf of the entire board. It's our hope that you will continue to attend meetings and consider throwing your hat in the ring during future elections, because we need talent coming in to keep us vital and vibrant. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Swarner. Anyone else? No? Okay, so we are up to adjournment. Would someone like to make a motion? Mrs. Swarner, a second. Mrs. Korn, thank you. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Aye.
Everyone says no.